Drones and public safety. Welcome back to Techstination. I'm Fred Fishkin. Joining us is National Aerospace Research and Technology Park President Howard Kyle. Hi, Howard.
Good morning.
Give us an overview to begin with of what the National Aerospace Research and Technology Park is all about. The name is pretty exciting.
Well, basically, we're a relatively new organization. We are located on 58 acres that is leased to us by the Federal Aviation Administration, specifically the William J. Hughes FAA Tech Center, which is located here in New Jersey. Right? And we're an organization that's dedicated to the advancement of aerospace research and technologies, but we also have an additional mission. We have an economic development mission. We're intended to broaden and diversify the economy of the Atlantic County and the South Jersey area, which, as some of you may know who are listening, that it's one of the more economically challenged regions of the country.
Right. And when a lot of people think about drones, they think about maybe having fun in the park or photography or how they're used in cinematography. But many may not realize the role they are playing in helping to save lives. And you've been trying to highlight some of those efforts.
Right. There are two types of drones. One is called large UAS, which we work with organizations such as a project we're doing with the Air Force. And there are also smaller UAS under 55 pounds. That's what we're working with in the law enforcement area. And it's a relatively new technology. People are becoming accustomed to it. We've started, as you may know, a series of emergency management training exercises. We did 3 of them. This is one we've done with the Atlantic City Fire Department on the beach. And the intention of that is to start introducing UAS or drones for beachfront safety, specifically swimmers who may be struggling, being able to bring a device to them that gives them a little flotation device, drops a flotation device to them. It could assist with crowd control. It could assist with spotting a lost child. Numerous uses, especially during the off season when you don't have as many lifeguards in place.
So let's talk about some use case scenarios. I mean, you mentioned one or two there, but how they could be used, and they need to be at the ready for deployment, right?
In that particular case, they would have to be close to being deployed immediately, yes.
So describe for us how this would work. Would lifeguards have them at their stands, or
they would have
one nearby?
Not every lifeguard would have a drone right there with them. There would be drones that would be positioned along the beachfront. I know they are starting to work out the details of that, and this is at an early stage. So a lot of these details would be worked out on what's the most effective means of deployment would be. But it's basically something that assists the lifeguards or life-saving individuals by enabling them to get a better perspective on what's happening at the front, what's going on at the time, to see more and to respond more quickly, even with crowd control measures. After we saw a demonstration just last week where, let's just say, there suddenly were strong riptides and people were out in the ocean. Well, sometimes getting the word out to swimmers to pull back, come ashore is difficult because they can't hear you. But if you have a drone flying out there giving that message, remove yourselves from the water, then that's helpful. That can be very helpful.
And of course, there are crowds in the summertime, but I know firsthand at the Jersey Shore and many other shore areas, people are in the water all year round, whether it's surfers or just people.
That's correct.
Wearing wetsuits when it's cold, hopefully.
Mm-hmm. That is correct. And that's one of the main use cases that the local law enforcement people and public safety individuals are looking at, is what to do after hours when people go down to the beach, when they maybe shouldn't be there and are in the water at a precarious time. How do you basically tend to them if they have an emergency?
So it would seem that there are some new job categories or skills to learn.
There are always new skills in this to learn. Yes, people who operate these will have to get a certification. It's called 107 certification. There is some training that's required. You just can't, it's not a case. One of the biggest misconceptions is that people can go down to a Best Buy, buy a drone, and just take it out and fly it. That's not the case. You have to have certain requirements that are to be met before you can do that, and a little bit of training. So it's an emerging area. It's being used in, I know we work with land surveyors who are doing things, we're doing engineering firms, people who do power line inspections. So it's a whole emerging area in the small UAS category. But the other one that's growing is large UAS, and also another area that we're working with, and that is unmanned advanced air mobility. That's the use of vertical takeoff, electrically powered craft that come up, sort of fly vertically and land. That's another area where we're involved.
Well, tell us about your involvement there, because I've been reading a lot about a variety of companies working to bring that technology to market.
It's a challenging new area. I think one of the few have gotten some initial certifications from the FAA. It's something that will basically revolutionize short distance air transport and transportation. Effectively, cleaner energy, electrically powered craft that can go shorter distances and just service areas that basically may not have traditionally had good access to transportation. What you generally hear, and I'm kind of hesitant to use the term because I think it sort of makes it sound a bit cartoonish when they say flying taxis and flying cars. That is a component of it. That is something that would be available for a company. That's the commercial side of it. But there are also, in that emerging area, public safety applications that could be used.
In other words, similar to the way you're getting help to people in the water with drones. Think of how fast emergency responders could get to a scene where they're needed if they could be flying there.
That's correct. And generally you do hear it in terms of the commercial transportation. In other words, let's just say I'm in Jackson, I need to fly to New York. You could get to a certain point to a vertiport of some sort, and you would get on one of these crafts. They would take off, and they would fly you to maybe the Newark airport or possibly the JFK airport. That's one of the use cases that's being considered, being developed.
Now, I know that this technology is arriving. People can actually, I think, put orders in today for some of these eVTOLs, if that's how it's pronounced, the vertical takeoff and landing.
Yes,
vehicles.
electrically powered vertical takeoff and landing craft. Yes.
So, what are your thoughts about having this technology available to a broad spectrum of the population rather than the elite few?
We are at an early stage right now, so a lot would have to be done before it's really available to a broad population. One of it is the more challenging aspect, and that is the economics of it all has to be worked out. Right? For a company to provide this service, it has to be at some point, it has to be profitable for them to do it. You get into the public safety uses, which are sort of different. They're not so much profit oriented, but the craft have to be developed. The craft have to be certified. Pilots have to be trained. Eventually, the long-term concept is that these craft would fly pilotless, but that's not going to happen for a while yet, until the FAA would get comfortable with that. And passengers, that's the other point. The public would have to get comfortable with the technology. It is something new. They haven't seen this before.
And most of these are fairly small, so they're not it's one or two people, three.
No, they can be 4 to 6. I've seen them about that size. So yes, that's changing as the technology develops.
So they could be transporting people. And right now, I guess not over very long distances, right? Because of these are electric, battery powered?
It's shorter distances, yes. There are people who are developing a hybrid version of that, which would be using electric power along with turbine power.
Like a Prius. Okay.
Something like that, yes.
So tell us what your thoughts are about how we avoid, for want of a better word, mayhem in the sky. If everybody is allowed to flying these,
everybody really wouldn't be allowed to. There'd be some regulation to that, and it would be done by the FAA where you could fly it, under what conditions you can fly it. It's challenging to the extent that these crafts are a little more subject to winds. So you'd have to have weather conditions that would have to be appropriate. So that is just, as I say, one aspect. The military is doing a lot with this. The Air Force has a program called Agility Prime, where they are developing their sort of AAM vehicle, and for a military purpose. That's making a lot of progress also.
Very interesting. Is there a place that people can go to learn more about the work that you're doing there?
Well, you can actually go online and you do advanced air mobility. You can see a lot on that area. You can go to our website, which is www.nertp.com. We have some information on that. NASA is also very involved with that area, advanced air mobility. They're getting more active in that. We do have a NASA scientist who's assigned to us, and we're working on a couple projects, mostly in the area of autonomy. If you want me to vary a little bit, we basically have a major program we have in place with the U.S. Air Force Air Mobility Command and the FAA, and that is to introduce the use of autonomous devices on civilian and military airfields. A lot of technology exists to do some of that, but the problem is none of it has been certified by the FAA for actual use and implementation in an airport. So we're working with companies to set up what they refer to as their command and control system. In other words, I think John Deere has an automated lawnmower you could use, right? That lawnmower isn't really authorized yet to be deployed on an airport. With the proper command and control systems in place, you can start deploying those once they get the FAA certifications. So what we're doing is using what the FAA usually refers to as a crawl, walk, run approach. Start with some applications that would involve autonomous devices that have no contact with an aircraft. And once you become secure in their operations and you feel that there's, the safety factors have been addressed, and you can deploy this with a reasonable degree of certainty that no damage is going to be caused, you start moving closer and closer to create devices that come into full contact with an aircraft. So starting with maybe something really simple and mundane, automated lawn mowing, perimeter patrols, and something called FOD detection, foreign object debris, that may be on an airfield that will runway or a taxiway that can damage aircraft tires or jet engines. You start with that. When you have that secure and you're comfortable with the cybersecurity aspects of it, then you start moving so closer till eventually you get to a point where you can do automated refueling, baggage loading, and in the military, maybe even ordnance loading. All that helps to make up for manpower shortages that both civilian and military airfields are beginning to experience.
That's very interesting.
Mm-hmm. It's possibly the start of a billion-dollar business. We're pleased to play a role in getting it, advancing it.
Sounds like a Roomba for the runway.
You could look at it that way. So what we are really concerned doing, the objective has always been with the development of the NARTP, not to develop a research park as an end in itself. The objective has always been to develop an aviation industry in Southern New Jersey. And to that extent, working with our partner agency, the Atlantic County Economic Alliance, we've established the only recognized aviation innovation hub in New Jersey that links together the Atlantic City International Airport, which has been designated as a smart airport test bed, the FAA William J. Hughes Tech Center, which is considered one of the finest certification testing laboratories for aviation in the world, and the NARTP and the surrounding 1 mile area. But we've taken that concept a bit further, and we've now decided that the innovation hub is great, but we actually look at the assets that you have, the economic development assets that we have here in New Jersey, that we see you can actually take it further. So we started reaching out to the Joint Base, and we started working on projects with the Air Mobility Command at a Joint Base McGuire, Dix, Lakehurst. And if you can envision that in your head, that's up very near where you are, Fred, the Joint Base. To tie the Joint Base with what we're doing down here and with UAS work that's being done in Cape May County with the Delaware River Bay Authority, you actually start seeing a research triangle, an aviation research triangle. But we've taken that a little bit further. We've expanded that triangle and brought one leg down to where it now brings in Dover Air Force Base. And we're working on actual projects in that regard. We have a cooperative research and development agreement with U.S. Transcom and the U.S. Air Mobility Command to open up the airspace over southern New Jersey for AAM and UAS testing and development. So we're in the early stages of that project. Very complicated. None of this is easy. None of this stuff is that simple where you can just sit there and do it. It's going to take time to get these things into place, but we're making progress in doing that. We work with our partner agency here, as I mentioned, the Aviation Innovation Hub, and they're also developing air cargo operations out at the airport. Progress has been made in that regard. And we're also looking to develop a state-of-the-art aviation maintenance and repair academy, working closely with Embry-Riddle Aeronautical University in that regard, hoping that eventually we can set an arrangement where they would operate that type of facility.
Very exciting. Well, congratulations on the work that you're doing and on all of the innovation.
Thank you. Still got a lot more to do.
Of course. Howard Kyle, thanks for spending time with us.
Thank you for inviting me.